Notices of motion, general notices, number 89, standing in the name of Mr Jamie Parker, universal preschool education.
I call the member for Balmain.
Thank you very much, Mr Temporary Speaker. I move that this House, one, notes that Australia is moving towards providing universal access to 1 year of preschool education, whereas most OECD countries offer universal preschool education for 2 years, notes the benefit of 2 years of preschool education are well established, calls on the government to introduce a scheme for an additional year of public preschool for 2 days a week for all children in New South Wales, calls on the government to introduce a first stage of the scheme that offers an additional year of preschool to 10,000 children from Aboriginal families and disadvantaged communities, and calls on the government to work with the Commonwealth to provide all children with access to 2 years of preschool by 2018. Mr Temporary Speaker, we Greens believe preschool education should be free and accessible to all. This is an issue of utmost importance in my electorate in Balmain, and I'm sure to all of the other members here today. There is a significant body of international research supporting the enormous developmental benefits for children of quality preschool education. The benefits of early childhood education are particularly significant for children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Benefits include important learning and educational outcomes, in addition to the improved development of social skills such as communication, teamwork and friendship building. Professor Tony Vincent on authority in education conducted research on the benefits of free preschool classes in public schools and the inadequacy of the current provision. Professor Vincent argued the cost of preschool education must be weighed against the potential savings in other areas, that is, expenditure in preschool education can save in other areas in the long term. Providing children with a better grounding in their social and academic education means there's less chance they'll end up unemployed, have contact with the criminal justice system or suffer from preventable ill health. Mr Temporary Speaker, we Greens took to the election the preschool initiative that will offer 2 years of free preschool education for 2 days a week for all children of New South Wales. We understand that financial constraints do exist, and so our view is that there should be a first stage of a policy which will offer 10,000 children the chance to enter a government preschool for additional 1 year. Places will be targeted to Indigenous families and disadvantaged communities. And of course the government must work with the Commonwealth to extend access then to 2 years of preschool for all children by 2018. The estimated additional cost of this first stage is $28 million per year for additional teachers and $100 million capital works in the first year to build the additional classrooms. The flow-on benefits from government investment in 2 years of preschool far outweigh the costs. A strong and clear commitment to equitable access to at least 2 years of quality preschool education for every child is a key to investing in the next generation for building a fair, successful and cohesive society. In 2008, 29 November, COAG endorsed a major national partnership agreement on early childhood education. The Australian Government has now entered into bilateral agreements under this national partnership with all states and territory governments. These agreements outline how each jurisdiction is to achieve universal access. The 2010 annual report on the national partnership stated a major priority for preschool funding reforms and funding increases in New South Wales under both the PIRP and the UA has been to put downward pressure on preschool fees. A particular priority has been to reduce fees for Aboriginal children and children from low-income families, for whom fees are recognised as a significant barrier to preschool access. Despite this, of course, the government has introduced a policy which has impacted significantly upon the accessibility of preschools. In fact, New South Wales is already falling below our benchmark target for, quote, the proportion of children in the preschool age group who are enrolled in an early childhood education program. In 2009, the benchmark result was only 81.1%. 2010, the target was 96.4%, yet the benchmark result was only 86.2%. The overwhelming majority of public schools in Western Australia, South Australia and the ACT provide free preschool. According to the 2012 report on government services, New South Wales has the highest proportion of private fee-paying preschools of any state, which is 40%. In a press release last year, Minister Pickley stated, "We lag behind other states and territories in both participation rates and affordability. This situation is unacceptable, with considerable international research showing quality early childhood education can significantly improve a child's life, health and economic prospects," end quote. The Productivity Commission also noted in 2006 that New South Wales has the highest fees for preschool and the lowest rates for participation. The government's decision to impose fees on preschools in free public schools is incompatible with the COAG agenda of increasing affordability of access to preschool, particularly for children from disadvantaged backgrounds. Mr Temporary Speaker, Participation in preschool has been strongly linked to the availability of free preschool education. Researchers Andrew Dowling and Kate O'Malley of the Australian Council of Education Research have concluded, quote, "Remains the case that states with the relatively high rates of preschool participation in Australia are those that provide effectively free government-funded preschool services that are largely standalone and integrated with schools," end quote. 2009 Preschool Education Australia, page 6. The decision to introduce fees for public preschools has impacted on enrolments in my electorate, as I'm sure it has in many others. The New South Wales Teachers Federation is undertaking a survey of public school preschool teachers and principals to look at the impact of the introduction of these fees. I'll carefully review this data as soon as it's available, and I call on the Minister to do the same. I also note the New South Wales Government's submission to the Australian Government's Review of Funding 2011 stated that the gap in educational achievement between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal children was in part due to lower levels of attendance at preschools, and that is a critical issue, because we know that the significance of this is compounded by the fact that many of the DEC public preschools, which have fees, have now been introduced in areas which are located in disadvantaged areas. And with the reports that many preschools are suffering falling enrolments, we can introduce the potentially impacts of the introduction of these fees on the long-term development and educational outcomes for Aboriginal students, in addition to the many other social and economic indicators to which the achievement of quality education is linked. Mr Temporary Speaker, equitable access to preschool education can, as we know, have transformational impacts for children from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, thereby contributing significantly to breaking a cycle of intergenerational poverty and disadvantage. This issue strikes at the heart of what we as a community mean when we say we are committed to equity. If we are committed to equity as a community, the New South Wales Government has clearly stated in its educational commitments as part of the National Partnership, there can be no more substantial and proven action than providing at least 2 years of free and accessible quality preschool for our children. Mr Temporary Speaker, I commend the motion to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed.